What's going on, everybody? I'm John J. II, and this is Gym Promotions. Today, I'm joined with the Sports Gambling Podcast, made up of Sean and Ryan. Sean and Ryan, how you guys doing today?
Doing great, man. It's in the heat of NBA season, NBA playoffs, and never too early to talk football. So things are going well.
Yeah, awesome. We just taped our Belmont Stakes podcast, and get a little horse racing going. It's a great time to be a gambler.
I see you guys are very well-rounded over there at the Sports Gambling Podcast. Really sweet setup. I'll put the screen for all our viewers to check it out. Their setup's absolutely amazing. I love it. I love the backdrop, the jerseys, everything, the footballs and the cases in the background, the signed basketball, Virginia Tech right there. I love it. You said it perfectly. We're right in the heat of it, especially talking about the NBA playoffs and everything, sports. Like you said, Ryan, it's really never too early to start looking into future at football, especially with the draft behind us now. Just looking forward at all the swaps. You got the controversy with Aaron Rodgers. There's a lot going on there in the Packers franchise. I guess let's start with football, and then we'll get into the playoffs for NBA here shortly. What are you guys looking at specifically when it comes to NFL? Are you looking at certain draft picks, certain team dynamics? What are you guys looking at in the NFL right now?
I mean, right now it's all either you're diving headfirst into fantasy because you're one of those guys, or you've looked at the draft and you're trying to figure out like which team helped themselves, which team didn't, and which one of those teams is poorly priced in the market. So I think for us, it's about like having a strong opinion. And I'm a Giants fan. You can see behind me. So I love taking the Giants plus 450 to win the NFC East right now because we haven't seen Daniel Jones with pads on looking fire. We haven't seen the new look Jason Garrett offense. So I think in general.
Wow, Ryan, you almost got through that with a straight face.
I'm practicing.
The new look Jason Garrett offense.
So I think
it's the same offense we've always seen, and it's going to be the same Daniel Jones we've always seen. Daniel Jones.
Sean doesn't like the Giants.
No, I hate the Giants, but unrelated to that, I put out an open request. I said, Giants fans, where is this excitement coming from? Send me a game where you thought Daniel Jones had a really good game and showed that he was a franchise quarterback. Haven't heard from a single Giants fan. So that speaks to where the Giants are at. And the confidence for the Giants fans is comically high. Normally, they're just like beat up and sad and afraid to come out of their hole. They came out of their hole because Colt McCoy won him a couple games, and now they think Daniel Jones is going to be a Pro Bowler. So it's exciting to see their level of disappointment come this season.
So to recap, Sean likes the under on the Giants.
Yes, very much so.
Wow, that's sweet. I love the controversy. So something here at Gen Pros that we really embrace is the entire controversy dynamic where there's differing opinions. And let's just be honest, there's a lot of those in the world of sports. And no matter how close you are as friends, there's always going to be differing opinions. And that's great. I think that's great content. And it shows that people are transparent. They're not completely, abiding by whatever the other person's saying. So I think that makes it very organic, makes it very realistic as far as a conversation is concerned. So that's really sweet. I love that. I love the controversy between the Giants and the non-Giants fans. I actually live with a Bears fan, and I don't want to call myself a Lions fan because I'm not. I'm excited to see what Dan Campbell and all those guys are going to do with the new dynamic in Detroit. But by no means, don't get it twisted. I'm not a Lions fan. So let's just get that out in the open real quick.
I had to reiterate that multiple times. You're not a Lions fan. I did like that he showed up to a press conference with a race helmet on. It's a real football guy move. So I like Dan Campbell's attitude. We'll see if it pays off, but I like where his head's at. Yeah,
I do too. What about you, Sean? What do you think about the Lions? I know you're a Giants fan, but what do you think? I know it's just fun talking about the Lions right now because there's really nothing to lose, everything to gain, and that's been like that for decades. What are your takeaways from Detroit and the Dan Campbell movement?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I think the bar is so low that I think it won't be hard for this team to meet and slightly exceed expectations. I'm out on Jared Goff as a quarterback, but I think, in a dome playing from behind, he might put up okay numbers. I think they could do a little bit with their defense. I do like the Jamal Williams signing. I don't know why they. I think they're going a little too hard with running back if they're actually, with Todd Gurley as well. But Yeah, I think they're not going to be quite as bad as people think they are, but I still think they'll be fairly bad. I mean, 6-11, I think is probably like a realistic expectation for the Lions this year.
I completely agree. What about you, Ryan? How do you feel? How do you feel about the Lions?
I mean, I think they're probably going to cover some spreads. They're going to be one of these teams that like the value community in the betting world bet every week because they're catching a lot of points. But the closer we get to the season, the more I'm backing away from the Lions plus 7.5 at home week 1 against the San Francisco 49ers because, again, Dan Campbell looks like he could be a fun mascot coach. I don't know if he's going to be a good coach. And so I think someone pointed out somewhere along the lines that even when he took over for Adam Gase, he didn't perform all that well. So we'll see what kind of football guy he is. I just would be worried because, like Sean said, Jared Goff was being propped up with a mastermind strategic coach who was calling the plays in his ears. Dan Campbell is not that. And that is what the concerning point to me would be. That and they have no defense.
And
Yeah.
Anthony, not the greatest OC. Much in the same way that the Giants brought in Jason Garrett. It's a similar move to bring in Anthony Lynn for the offense.
Wow. Oh, 100%. I know that's a big blow to you, Sean. Not Sean, Ryan. That's a big blow to Ryan's entire ego by saying that. But hey, we'll see what happens come this season, you know. And there's a lot of talking we can do before the season. Everything comes out in the wash eventually. We'll see what happens there. But yeah, I completely agree. You know, the Lions, they have it cut out for them. They're not, you know, set up to really succeed to the highest level yet, and they haven't proved anything to us yet. And we'll see what happens with this new dynasty, I guess, if you want to call it that, if it's even worth calling it that.
I wouldn't call it that.
Yeah. Be careful. It might not last that long.
I couldn't think of a better word. That was the first word that came into my head. I had to put it out there.
Pre-dynasty.
Pre-dynasty. That's better. Okay, good deal. So without giving me too much information, we'll talk about you guys and your podcast here in a little bit. Let's walk me through your entire betting strategy. Let's just start with NFL football, and maybe you can tell me how that mentality or strategy changes going across the wide world of sports. How does it play out for NFL football?
Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost with NFL, you know, we obviously are the most knowledgeable, and that's where it starts, knowing the teams. I think, you know, you can be a numbers guy, you can be a football guy, you can be a trends guy, but if you don't understand the game, it becomes hard to actually analyze what the hell's going on. And I think, you know, to your question of like taking that strategy of NFL handicapping and applying to other sports, it's tougher, honestly, because of the time between games, because of the information. I feel like with the NFL, you have so much more time to get the information right. It's a lot easier to find yourself on the right side. I think with you know, if you're applying this to different sports, it simply just becomes an information game, and the NFL has the most information, so that might create the hardest market to crack, but it also gives you the most confidence on what you're betting on. So I kind of sidestep the question of strategy because, you know, somewhere in between using numbers and using my gut. But I think the most important thing, if you're listening, is actually give a shit about the sport you're betting on. Otherwise, you're just throwing darts.
Gotta have a little skin in the game. Actually, feel those losses,
especially because live betting is such a big part of the game now. That if you're watching the game and you see you made a shitty bet, you can get out of that bet, buy the other side, and still find yourself into a profitable situation.
Yeah, no, I think with the NFL, my strategy has just been to watch every NFL game and then, you know, take a look at the numbers, work in my confirmation bias, always fade the Cowboys, always take the Eagles. No, I think it's a mix of like the numbers and passing the eye test. It's easy to just like lock in and say and set up a model of like, hey, every time 75% of the public is on one side, take the other side, stuff like that. I think that's helpful, but I still think, especially, you know, you want to have fun with the bets. So you want to have some personal stake in it. So I think watching all the games is huge for the NFL. But obviously taking the dogs and fading the public, that's stuff you can apply to all sports and probably good when in doubt, lean the dog and lean fading the public.
Yeah, very well said. I completely agree because you can't completely go off of that matchup predictor on ESPN, which 99% of bettors do. Is they look at the matchup predictor like, oh, 82% for the Steelers against the Ravens. They're only 22%. We gotta take that. And it's looking at more of that. And honestly, the better bettors, without making a pun of myself there, you got to really look at the other factors that the matchup predictor isn't calculating, because you could have a pretty good bet there for an underdog's perspective, and then you could possibly increase your payout by doing that. And I've done that a lot of times. I really like doing parlays where I have a couple underdogs in there, just really increase the odds and the multiplier. So picking out those underdogs is huge.
Oh yeah, I mean that's one of the classic gambling staples. If you like a dog in the NFL, make sure you bet them outright as well. Because the numbers, what is it, like 70% of the time?
81% of the
81%.
time over the last 10 years, the spread has not mattered. So just pick the winner, and if it's the dog, take them straight up. Because like you said, 1.5 to 1, 2 to 1 is better than -110.
Yeah, it adds up.
100%. All right, so I got a question for you guys, and we'll get into your podcast, what you guys do. Doing it a little bit backwards today, but that's okay. We're a little bit off kilter over here. Kendrick Perkins and Ryan Clark had a controversy. Kendrick Perkins said that it's much harder to win an NBA title than it is to win a Super Bowl. Ryan Clark rightfully disagreed with that. Where do you guys stand on that issue?
I mean, it's much harder to win a Super Bowl just because it's much harder to play football.
Well, and on top of that, in basketball, you can just sign 3 guys and be pretty much 99% of the way there. I think in football, you can't, you could line up the best 11 players on offense and defense in the league, and that still would not make you a decided favorite to win the Super Bowl because of things like injury, because of things like single game playoff. So, I think Kendrick Perkins has turned into an old man, senile talking head at this point. He comes on these shows and he just says he tries to be a hot take machine when he already kind of was as a grumpy dude. It was a horrible take. And obviously I'm always on Team Ryan. So Ryan Clark nailed it. The Super Bowl, much harder crown to get.
Yeah, 100%.
And football's harder, like Sean said.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it is to get 11 really well-coached guys, getting them on the same page. To Ryan's point, if you get 3 superstars, that means 60% of your starting lineup is a superstar. It's a lot easier place to get to. And especially in the NBA, you can just say you don't want to be on the team anymore, and they just have to trade you. It's much harder to force your way out of a bad situation in the NFL. I mean, ask Aaron Rodgers. I think it's just way tougher to get 11 people on the same page than 5.
Very well said. I completely agree. I think it's much harder to win a Super Bowl too, just because you have to have so many more players, and you have only one game to really prove yourself. It's like a March Madness scenario in the playoffs for NFL. You can't lose a game and come back and win and win it in 4 or 5 like you can in NBA. So a little bit different dynamic there. So don't want to run out of time here. Let's talk about your guys' podcast. Give me the lowdown on what your podcast is all about, where your passions come from. What is your podcast based on?
Well, if you couldn't have guessed by the title, the Sports Gambling Podcast is about sports gambling. Kramer and I love betting on sports. We've been doing it for probably each of us 20 plus years. So we'll say a combined 50 years gambling experience on the podcast, half a century of gambling experience. And we just love throwing out hypothetical bets, what we like on games. We love watching games live, reacting to them live, the sweat you have when you got a ticket. And that's really what our podcast is about. If you just like gambling, I don't see how you wouldn't like our podcast. And we hit on all those sports. And then we have the Sports Gambling Podcast Network, which covers all the team specific stuff way more in detail. Like we'll hit on the NBA. We kind of do big picture stuff, but then we have a daily NBA gambling podcast, an MLB gambling podcast, MMA gambling podcast. Again, if you want to bet on something and you want to talk about it, you want an angle on it, we got you covered. So we hit on everything.
Yeah, and I think it's just bottling up that raw gambling emotion. Like so many gambling shows avoid that, right? Because they want to avoid the degeneracy. They want to avoid the things that create this taboo nature of gambling. We embrace that stuff. You want to talk about getting some action at 2 a.m. on a tennis tournament in Australia? That's right up our alley. So again, like Sean said, we cover all the sports. We even have a Slack community where if you want to talk to like-minded DGens who bet on rugby, bet on tennis, bet on digital horse racing, that's the show.
Got you covered. Yeah.
Wow, well said. So Ryan, you mentioned the word degeneracy. I love that word. So where do your guys' degenerate roots begin? Because you guys didn't have, the MGM Sportsbook app. You didn't have FanDuel, DraftKings 20 years ago.
No,
how'd you guys start? You called it in, right?
Yeah, we had Tony, and you'd call into Tony, and every 25 you bet, you had to risk 30, and you'd meet him, at some diner kind of off the freeway. I'm from Jersey. So the answer to the question is I'm from Jersey. Sean's from Philly.
Yeah.
Kind of part of the culture over, maybe not all parts of the country. It's part of the culture, but I knew what a bet was as early as I knew what money was, period. That's where it came from.
Ryan was playing parlay cards in kindergarten. Yeah, no, I mean, we both come. If you want to gamble in this country illegally, it's not that hard to figure it out. And then obviously there was a bunch of offshore websites as well as it got more savvy and sophisticated. Now we're kind of going to the next level of all these legal sports books available in all these different states. I mean, we're even now, like, our company completely tied with legal sports books. We got a page called betsgpn.com. You can go there, any legal, wherever you are in the country, and you're looking to bet legally, we got sign up links. We got you covered. So, gambling in general has kind of come full circle as it's become a corporate enterprise, and
it's coming out of the shadows.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, that's crazy. So do you guys have any specific bet in mind that might go back, decades for you guys? What is that bet that sticks out in your mind that's like, okay, this is something I can see myself doing for a long time? What was that bet? Was it a single bet? Was it a parlay? Or a straight bet, rather? What was it?
It wasn't a sports bet that got me laid down the pavement for me as a degenerate. It was the craps table. And when those dice are in the air, baby. I mean, I could tell you about how I hit on the Giants 50-1 when they beat the undefeated Patriots. But it's the dice in the air, baby. That's the feeling. That's when I knew this was a lifetime commitment. The sports betting has almost become the hobby, right? Like the real gambling is. I miss Vegas, baby. We'll be going out soon, but I think for me, it's just that, again, it's that vibe. It's that feeling you get when the dice are in the air, that sweat, whatever you call it, when you're watching a game with action on it. Like that's the emotion that hooked me, at least personally.
Yeah, no, completely agree. We've all had those moments sweating it out that just make you feel alive, and I want to keep gambling. I think the first time I ever went to a casino, I was 17 or 18, drove up to Montreal and just sat down at a blackjack table and went to town. And I was like, this is amazing. I want to do this for the rest of my life. And kind of figured out a way to do it. I won $200,000 on a DraftKings Millionaire Maker. Got second place in that. Should have won $1 million if it wasn't for Scott Tolzien throwing 2 pick sixes in the same game. So Scott Tolzien owes me $800,000, and I'm either going to collect it from Scott or win it back one NFL game at a time.
Wow, that's crazy. Oh my gosh. So, wow, that's impressive. That's all I can really say about that. And I can't believe you, Ryan. You bet on the undefeated, or you bet against the undefeated Patriots. You actually put money on that bet, being a Giants fan.
Well, it was more than that. I had money from before the season, but really the DGen story of that playoff run is myself, Sean, and some other folks were actually in Vegas, divisional weekend. Giants are playing the Cowboys. We're catching a flight after the game. We didn't have the best weekend. We all put every penny we had on the Giants money line. And this is back before Uber, back before cabs taking credit cards. So we're literally committing to an ATM trip just to get the cab to the airport home. Long story short, Giants beat the Cowboys. Rest is history, baby. Let's go.
Wow, what a story. You might have to write a storybook about that. That's some chill. I just got chills down my spine hearing that.
That's that feeling you just felt. That's it.
That's it right there. Good stuff, guys. Well, hey, we run out of time. It's crazy. We could talk for hours, I feel like, but running out of time here. You guys got any last words before we sign off today?
Yeah, we just launched an app. You can get it's SGPN in the App Store, Google Play Store. You can get all our podcasts, our free picks, and we're even doing a $1,000 NBA playoff contest for the finals. Make sure you just download the app in the App Store, SGPN or Google Play Store, and you click the contest tab there, and you're good to go.
Absolutely. Join the community.
Good stuff, guys. Good stuff. Well, hey, I'll wrap it up there. Thank you to all our viewers and everybody that shows out for Gin Pros. Make sure to check out the Sports Gambling Podcast and everything they do. I'll make sure to plug them by putting all their links in the description of the podcast and on our Facebook page for you guys to see and view and enjoy. But yeah, other than that, that's all we got. Thank you guys for joining us on the official Gin Pros podcast /live stream. I'm your host as always, John J. II. Have a great night.